Hey guys, I'm OnePlusData, and welcome to another review. This time we have The Walking Dead Season 3, Episode 10, Home. So yeah, Season 3 of The Walking Dead just rearing into the double digits. That's pretty awesome, and we know we're going to get a Season 4, but I just love to see new episodes, see what they're going to do with this series altogether, how it's going to compare to the comics and everything, and this episode did not let down. Great episode, a lot of surprise twists too, so we'll get into that. But before I want to really get into this review, just want to let you guys know that this review does contain spoilers. If you do not want to know what happens, go watch the episode and come back. And I just want to apologize, guys, before I start. I have a little bit of a cold, so my voice might sound a little bit weird. But, yeah, sorry about that. But, anyway, let's get right into the episode. So, right off the bat, we kind of leave off. We jump in right where we left off, where Rick is seeing visions of Lori in a white dress. And this happens again when Rick is looking around the perimeter of the prison. He sees Lori again at the graves of everyone that's died and they've buried at the prison so far. So he goes up to her and she disappears. He then sees Lori again out of the prison, and he walks out of the prison and he actually touches Lori and like hugs her and stuff. And so to Rick, this is like as real as it gets. It's like Lori's actually right there. It is still a vision though, because other people see Rick just standing there doing nothing. So we can see that he is pretty much completely insane at this point. If the phone stuff didn't really convince you that he's insane, this really does convince you that Rick is gone insane. And you know what? In the comics, Rick is way cooler. He does have a little episode where he's like, he's kind of insane too, but not to the same extent as what the show does. In the show, they've hinted that he's gone insane, but they've really showed it off as in, oh look, I'm talking to dead people, I see dead people, all this stuff. And really in the comic, they do the same thing, but it's not the same effect, because Rick in the comic, he goes back to being normal, I guess you can say. And in the show so far, hasn't done that. He's pretty much insane. But yeah, we go back to Woodbury, and basically the governor tells Andrea that he does not want to attack the prison. And we can see that he's kind of conniving, so we really don't know what's going to happen anymore. But the governor doesn't want to lead his people anymore, and he's trying to convince Andrea to lead them, which is kind of weird because Andrea, I don't think, would be the right leader type. I think she'd do okay, but not really. And it's weird because this episode kind of really focuses on leadership. We see Andrea at Woodbury kind of thinking about taking over Woodbury, like she wants to not take over but take the leadership role. And in the prison, Glenn is trying to take the leadership role. So it's kind of weird that this theme resonates throughout the episode, that leader. So you can really see that. Governor also says that he wanted Milton to cure his daughter. That's why he's been doing all these experiments again and all that. Well, that still doesn't explain why he has heads of people in fish tanks. So we can still see that the governor is kind of mentally disturbed too, although he is trying to cover it up with the fact, oh, well, I'm looking for a cure so I can cure my daughter. That doesn't really cover it up all the way, I would say. Then we go to Daryl and Merle, and they're thinking about going back to the prison, but Merle's like, no, they're not going to accept me at all. And it's something interesting. They say they want to go fishing. That's kind of interesting. That never really came up yet in The Walking Dead, that you can still fish. The fish, I don't think, would be affected by the walkers. Or maybe if, something that comes up, though, the walker that was in the well in Season 2, so it kind of contaminated the water, that could have happened, but we never seen that before. But sadly, we don't see them fishing or anything, so then we go to the prison, and Glenn's trying to secure the prison. He's trying to find the breach, and so he's kind of stepping up and trying to take over, the whole prison thing. He's trying to be the leader. Glenn brings up that he wants to basically stealth kill the governor. He wants himself and Michonne to go and take him out, because Michonne kind of knows where everything's situated in Woodbury, so that would be the ideal person to take. Then Hershel kind of stands up and he says, whoa, slow down, Glenn. Like, I understand you're trying to be the leader here and everything, but maybe you're not fit for this. He's saying the voice of reason. He's kind of what Dale was in Season 2. And Glenn kind of talks back to Hershel, which is very strange because he had a lot of respect for Hershel in Season 2, and he was with his daughter, so he didn't want to have a bad impression on him. But now he's just like, oh no, like he just stands right up. So we can see Glenn's character even developing even more. At this point, they basically decide that they're going to stay in the prison and not leave or anything, because that was a possibility. We go back to Woodbury, and the governor's talking to Milton, and he basically says, would you take a bullet for me? And that's a big question to answer, and he said yes. And the governor kind of says, well, you know, you're my friend and all this, and Milton's kind of frazzled about it. He doesn't really know what to say. But yeah, he wants Milton to keep watch on Andrea, because he's gonna go somewhere, as we're gonna see. Then we see Martinez and the governor are missing, and Andrea can't find them. Andrea's scrambling around looking for them, can't find Martinez or the governor, and Milton basically says, oh, they're out on a, you know, recon mission, blah, 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 whatever, something. He just makes up an excuse. We go back to the prison, and Glenn's under pressure because he's trying to be the leader, and he's making bad mistakes. He wants to go around the perimeter with Maggie, so that doesn't really make sense. So, you know, he's under pressure, so I understand why he's making these mistakes. And really, he's the next one in line to take the leadership role. There's no one else that can really do it because Daryl's gone now, so he can't really do anything. Tyrese would be good for it, but they don't really trust Tyrese at this point, so we can see that. Then we kind of see Maggie and Glenn's relationship, where that's at, and Glenn does not know what happened to Maggie at the prison. He thinks that the governor raped her, but obviously we know that he didn't. So there's kind of a trust issue here, and yeah, Maggie's just really angry at Glenn. So then we go back to Merle and Daryl. They're bickering back and forth at each other, and while they're doing this, they find strangers on a bridge. They're all stranded, and basically Daryl says, you know what, let's go help them. So we see that there's two men there, a baby and a woman. And the woman and the baby are trapped in a car while the men are, you know, scrambling around trying to protect them, but there's zombies everywhere. But then Daryl comes to the rescue. Merle, not so much. He just stands around, and he's just walking casually toward them. He's not helping them at all. And then we get probably the coolest zombie kill of this episode. Merle smashes a zombie's head with the car trunk door. So it was really awesome. It was disgusting too, but... and we find out these survivors are speaking a different language, Mexican, Spanish probably, so that's probably what they're speaking. Merle just basically wants to take their stuff, and so he's just rummaging through it and stuff after they save him. Daryl points his crossbow at Merle and basically says, no, get out of here, get out of here. So then all the strangers just get out, drive away in the car, and Merle's like, what? We saved them, we can take their stuff. And basically Daryl's saying, no, let them go, you know, they had a baby. And they start fighting over like, between themselves, and we see that their past is actually brought up too, and then we assume at this point that they had an abusive father. It kind of hints at that, so it was cool to kind of see a little bit of a backstory with that. So that was cool. Then another thing that happened that was kind of surprising is they split their ways. So they split up again. That is kind of weird because, come on, man, you were split up right at the beginning. You spent all this time trying to find each other. You're finally together, and let's break up again. So that seemed really fast. Maybe if it was another episode, like one more episode before they broke up again, that would kind of make more sense. But it just happened so fast that it's like, slow down for a bit. I mean, like, come on. Like, you know, The Walking Dead's not one to really stretch things out other than the whole Sophia thing. But nothing really was really stretched out so much that it made me that angry. And then this kind of had the opposite effect. It was kind of too fast. And something else happened that was a little fast too for this episode, which we'll get to in a minute. But let's continue with this. Back to the prison. Glenn wants to go around the perimeter, check everything. And he's being really, like, arrogant, I guess. And Herschel's kind of talking to him, trying to talk him out of it. Like, saying, just step down for a second, cool off. And he basically says, the rage is going to get you killed. And Glenn says, you know what, I'm next in charge, I'm next in line, what else can I do? So he's right, and basically Rick's still running around the prison. He's not even in the prison, he's just running around. He's gonna get killed outside of the prison. And he's just having hallucinations. And Herschel's inside the prison at the edge of the fence, and he's, you know, telling Rick, come here. So Rick comes, and he's basically begging Rick to come back in. And he asks Rick, you know, what are you doing? Rick says, I have stuff out there. You know, really, he's fumbling with his words, not trying to say what actually is happening. And then Rick just kind of confesses to Herschel about Lori, how he's seeing her, you know, blah blah blah. And there has to be a reason for me to see her, he's saying. There has to be an answer. And Herschel's still saying, like, come back in, and he doesn't want to. And all of a sudden, we see, throughout this episode, we see Carol and Axel, and they're kind of basically flirting with each other almost. They're, you know, having a good time, blah, blah, blah. We're seeing more of Axel's past. All of a sudden, Axel gets shot in the face, and he's dead. And actually, the governor shoots him. It was such a surprise. That's what I love about The Walking Dead. Not going to know what's going to happen. Big surprises. It was crazy. And I really didn't expect it at all. He tells a joke, and he's not even done saying the joke, and he gets shot. So, you know, you're laughing at the joke, and he's dead. And it really doesn't even resonate to you at all that, you know what, Axel's dead now. Like, I'm still trying to think about that. And so Governor and Martinez and a bunch of his men come in a little small group, and they're attacking the prison. They shoot and kill Axel. And, you know, it was another just like an injury to see that Carol had to use Axel's body as a shield from bullets. And they're both, so she's laying on the floor using his body as a shield. So that was, you know, that must have been really horrific for her. So then Rick jumps down into cover, and he's shooting at them. Herschel drops to the floor. He's in the middle of the field because he was talking to Rick. So he's on the floor just trying to, you know, avoid all the shots and everything. And then a car drives through the prison, through the gates and everything, and lets out a bunch of walkers. It was like a big van, you know, like kind of like those ones that bands use to carry all the equipment. And they just lets a bunch of walkers loose. So there's walkers throughout the field now. Herschel's right in open sight of them, and Herschel's shooting them with, he just has a small pistol that he's shooting his walkers with. And then Glenn was he was around on the perimeter, so he drives in with a truck. He saves Herschel. So I really didn't want Herschel to die. I don't know why. Like, he's not that important. He is, you know, the doctor in the group, but still, I just really didn't want to see him die. So Herschel comes around, saves him. Another cool little thing was seeing Michonne running around, just slicing zombies' heads off. And basically, Rick got pinned up against the fence. A bunch of walkers are on him. He's out of bullets. At one point, he's using his gun and just stabbing them with the barrel of his gun, which is crazy. And then we see an arrow go through a walker, and Daryl and Merle are at the prison again. Even though I thought they split up, but maybe that'll be explained a little later. But so yeah, Daryl and Merle are back at the prison, and I think I know why they made them come back so quick, Merle and Daryl. It's because a lot of people were complaining that they didn't want to see Daryl die or get separated, so they didn't want to upset a lot of fans with like a bunch of episodes and being separated. So I think that's what he needs. And so yeah, so that was basically the whole episode. The governor attacks the prison. That was really fast. I thought that was going to happen near the end of this season, like way later. Like the season finale, I would have thought. So that was cool to see.